time to talk our favorite indie games of 2024 and which ones really moved us throughout the year, even well before we started recording, which is fun.
Indeed. And what a year it's been. It's been really, really interesting. So many great games been coming out.
It's insane. And I mean, I've been, we've started the Indie Credible podcast. Indie Gaming Gems is going wild. Just like Hulkamania. I'm just going wild. And it's pretty cool though. But I've been gathering indie games for years. So this year has been exceptionally insane with some amazing and remarkable games that we've played throughout the year. Uh, my list, it wasn't part of the rules, but my list, I happen to have beaten all five of my favorite games of the year, which is awesome. And every year on HigginsAlley.wordpress.com, which is my old blog I've been doing for like 15 years, I do my favorite games of the year. And a lot of these games do make my top 10, but the top 10 have everything in there. So, like Zelda will be in there and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Horizon and things like that. But these games here like hit the pinnacle of indie to me. I mean, there's a lot of Metroidvanias in there because I was also writing Metroidvania Chronicles and stuff during this time, which is wild to think that I've been pushing out so many books at the same time while doing all this indie content. It's been a wild 2024 this year.
It really has. And I feel like just all across the board with this year, it's been like something for everyone.
So
Even in terms of gaming with like indie titles, because like I know you'll be talking a lot about Metroidvanias, but I mean, I've been getting kind of into the cozy genre of indie games, and there's been some cozy games, and I think with the weather getting a little colder, and
it was a little colder right now. Like, drinking
yeah, yeah, this is like the time of the year to like, put on a robe and play a cozy game. So, uh, I want to ask you, what's the first game you want to talk about?
So, in my titles, and I have to use my Lenovo Legion Go for my notes since my tablet died, and I'm sitting outside, so my family's still sleeping this morning, which is fun. So, essentially, I would like to talk, and these are in no typical order, but I'm gonna go bottom up on my list. I want to talk about one that we have talked about on the Incredible in the past, and it's called the Pinball Spire.
Such a good game.
Pinball Spire. So the Pinball Spire, just as a little general piece, almost a Metroidvania pinball game, which is wild. So you're playing through, your ball will go through on these different tables, and you have objectives to get to the next table, the next stage. I would almost say there's dozens, if not maybe close to 100, tables that you get to play through as you go through the game. And as you progress through the biomes, because there's levels that have different atmospherics in them, you'll unlock new abilities, which then, greatly affect how the enjoyment of the game. So, you first get this little spot where you can slow down time and kind of arch and aim your pinball. And then the next one you can turn into like a fire, and you can then fly through enemies instead of bouncing off them. And then there's even just this momentum one where you just like, as your ball is moving away, you hit a button and it'll zoom it in that way for momentum. And it's all the pieces work together, perfectly complement each other. And then there's really no like fear of death that you would have normally in pinball. So in pinball, you always worry about losing a ball or a game over. There is really no way to get a game over in this game because you just fall down to the next level and you just pop right back up. Like there is no stress. So you're talking cozy Metroidvania and pinball. This is your jam right here. This game was outstanding.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing it, and what I really liked about it, and what I remember mentioning in the previous episode, is like this is a great pinball game for someone to be introduced to pinball or to like to learn the ins and outs of pinball. Because I played pinball for years, and a lot of times I admit I would sit there and put quarters in the pinball machine and just try to keep my balls there. That's what I would try to do, just paddle, paddle, paddle. Where just
Paddle your balls.
yeah, just paddle my balls. But this one has an objective other than paddling your balls. Like you have to like knock down these like bells and slow down time, like you said, turn into a fireball. And each bio that you were talking about has like a different board and the music changes. That's what I really like about it. I like how, it starts off
Beautiful
like
music.
real soft, and like the next board it like the bass starts coming in, and I'm like almost like that Sega Genesis kind of bass tone to it. I thought it was cool. It's a great game.
Uh-huh. And the thing is that it's wild because then you get to the end and it'll lose it to it throughout the game, and there's a giant bullet hell boss at the end, which is the wild thing. So like I was not expecting there to be it's just giant eyeball tentacle boss that you fight at the end of the game. And I mean, again, no stress, no way to lose essentially, because I mean you literally just bounce all around. But it's so fun. So fun.
Yeah, and for me, I want to go off another game that we talked about in the previous episode. But this, like Pinball Spire, this game is also kind of nostalgic because it also makes you think of the podcast, because this is what we were both playing when we first started like in Incredibles, and that's UFO 50. And you introduced me to that madness. You were like, UFO 50. And I was like, because I don't really play a whole lot, or at the time, I didn't really play a whole lot on Steam. And I was like, well, let me check this out. And yeah, it's an ambitious project. It took like 8 years in the making, done by the folks that did Spelunky. And these are 50 like full on games. These aren't like WarioWare, hot, quick games. I mean, these are, long form retro style games. And each game has its own different genre. There's even sequels. Because what I really like about what they did with UFO 50 is all based around this fictional console. So it's almost like you're getting this console at a flea market full of a shoebox full of 50 games, and you have to dust every single one off and test them out. And there's a lot of games from different shooters to like even RPGs. There's like RPGs on this game. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. And I still haven't played all the games. I've went through and I go to it every once in a while and I fire up a new game, but I really haven't played all of the games yet. So some of them that you even mentioned in our episode, I hadn't even had the opportunity to try out yet, which is wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and so what were some of your standouts?
I'm trying to think of some of the titles off the top of my head. I mean, because there was that one game that I didn't talk about the last episode, Bug Attack. Bug Attack was like a really cool, like almost RTS kind of strategy RPG. That was a lot of fun. It was like grid based strategy game. And of course, like some of the shooters. There was that one. I think it was something like Honey Bun or something like that. I had to, instead of the bomb, you would actually take a picture, like a Polaroid, on the screen that would like freeze time, like that freeze frame that would let you, shoot off a bunch of ships and stuff like that. It was very Life Force like. Salamander was a big inspiration, I could tell. But yeah, there was a lot of great games on it. I would love to see it on a console because I feel like a lot of folks are missing out not playing UFO 50 because it is on Steam. And they're like, I don't really do PC gaming too much. This is the game you got to play, and it's such a great value because, like I said, the best way to describe it is like imagine Action 52, but the games are actually good. But I don't like to use that because I feel like it's almost like a disservice to UFO 50 because it's
It
more than
is.
that. It's
It
more
is.
than that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, because I mean, Action 52 has the classic of them being quickly rushed, poorly programmed games, whereas this one, the developer, I think there's developers, I think there might be like two or three.
Yeah.
They definitely put their heart and soul into some of these games. Other ones are like a proof of concept, but they're still a full-fledged game. Like some of them are like little Windjammer-esque little versus games and things, but they're still awesomely done and they have unique mechanics to them. So they're definitely, not rushed through. It's not Action 52 whatsoever. But
Yeah.
them putting 50 in the title just brings you back. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like I watched a lot of reviews around the time it came out. And a lot of people were like, imagine Action 52, but the games are actually good. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, this is like, to me, this is more like finding a console you never heard about. Like this kind of harkens back to when I was like first getting into retro collecting when I was a lot younger, and then finding out about the Sega Master System, and finding out that whole world because I didn't know about the Master System for the longest time because it wasn't big where I was growing up. I just knew about the Genesis. So when I found out about the Master System and I started finding like, Fantasy Star, Ease, all those classic titles, I get that same feeling with UFO 50. I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. So I would love to see it on console. I would love to see like a special collector's edition with a replica of that little console they're talking about, and that'd be awesome.
Let's say the biggest comparison that I would put to it would be like a retro game challenge on the Nintendo DS, which is based off the television show Game Center CX, which is my favorite show of all time. It's where this Japanese comedian plays Nintendo games terribly. And does commentating, and his goal is to beat the games. And there's 26, 27 seasons of this show in Japan, and I have almost all of them. I've been watching it for years because I watch a little bit here and there, which is amazing. But Retro Game Challenge was a Game Center CX1 in Japan, and it's a compilation of retro inspired games, and they're all full-fledged games. But that game does things a little differently because there's like challenges in UFO 50 that you can unlock. Like there's like little cherries and little things. This one puts the challenges in the front and says, do these little things. That's almost like a tutorial into the game. And that at the end, it's like, all right, just beat all the games now. So it starts off piecemealing it out, and you get to piecemeal out each of the titles. But there's not 50 either. There's like 10 maybe.
Yeah, that's something else. That's something else I forgot to mention is this game has a lot of replayability because it has built-in achievements. And the achievements you get, and it's funny because there's this there's this one like garden, like kind of dollhouse kind of area in the game that shows like different sprites, and as you play the game to unlock that it all comes to life, and it's all like the different characters in the games. It's cool. It's like a little museum.
Ant farm, seen that. I haven't even seen your real ant farm.
It's like a little retro museum.
See your this little ant farm, man. Freaking wild, man. Yeah. Excellent game. Excellent choice. So I think because I have a couple on the list, let me go to the first the Metroidvanias in my list this year. Let's talk about The Last Faith. I don't know if you've heard of The Last Faith.
Well, I looked at the trailer for it though. I hadn't heard about it.
This game is like so good. It's a ridiculous masterpiece of a game because like the graphics are very, Castlevania-ish or Dark Souls-ish or all that stuff, but it has this nice dreary mode to it. What I like though is the progression of all the unlockables in the game as you're going through, because the combat's on point. The different mechanics that you unlock are on point. But when you find all the unlockables, like some characters will just like randomly pop up and you talk to them and then they'll just disappear and go somewhere else and you got to find them. But it's through the progression of the game. And I somehow was randomly finding them just on my own, no problem, unlocking craziness, getting through all the different side quests, got even unknowingly. But the boss battles were excellent in the game. Very, very difficult though. Very like you'll die and you have to go back at it a million times type thing. But nothing cheap about it. So it's all skill based, which is what I really
Yeah, it definitely had a blasphemous kind of vibe to it. I saw it. It looked a little like
never played through the Blasphemous games yet.
Same.
Definitely has the same aesthetic. Oh, or Dead Cells or Dead Cells, a Dead Cells aesthetic to it. But yeah, like, and I like the whole world of the mansion that you go back to and everything, and it's just it has a very good aesthetic to it. I enjoyed it, and beating it was very much so a challenge this year. Reminded me of like Hollow Knight, but not quite as difficult of bosses as Hollow Knight, but definitely reminded me of how I felt when I beat Hollow Knight back in the day a few years ago.
that sense of accomplishment. That's always a good feeling. It's also my list. Followed by the sense of like, what am I going to do next now? I don't know. I always get that way when I play these games. I beat it and I'm like, man, that was great. Now I'm back to life.
Palate cleanser time.
Indeed. Yeah, that was a game I hadn't heard about that I saw the trailer in the show notes and I was just like, oh man, this is a game I need to check out. Another game that folks need to check out that I put on my list, speaking with the whole Castlevania kind of flair, is Vampire Survivors Ode to Castlevania. I had to put this on my list. I had to put it on my list. I know this is like DLC. I know Vampire Survivors, it's been out for a while. but like this was kind of like a DLC that were like it's about time, because you saw the art style of Vampire Survivors, you knew it was very heavily inspired by Castlevania, and I mean, I'm fanboying as much as probably the developers were when they're like Konami was like, hey, yeah, let's do a collaboration, and this isn't just like a cheap, Easter egg, let's ride nostalgia. This is a full-fledged like tribute to the Castlevania series with its own unique level and boss fights and unlockable characters, different music. It's been kind of like my go-to every night I'd get off work. I'd be like, all right, I need to play Vampire Survivors because it's a great game to zone out to. It's difficult at first, but once you die enough times and you get enough experience, you can build like this ultimate build where you can just break the game. And that's kind of like, that's where I'm at now. I'm like, I want to break the game. I want to kill.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just want to kill everything, not even move.
it's wild. And yeah, I don't play it as much as I should because I should just pop it on every once in a while. But it the first time I played the Castlevania one, it was wild seeing all these characters that you can potentially unlock, and then immediately finding one, which was wild. And then it's just going through and like each little boss fight, and then you progress, and you can get to like a little portal, so that way you can go to it because there's not enough time to go from start to finish because you got that little clock always ticking where the Red Reapers want to kill you. So you literally get the portals, and then you can portal onto the next section, and it's like you got to get to the next portion as fast as possible, so that way you can unlock the next progression piece. It's a weird thing that I never thought would happen in Vampire Survivors because there really was no progression.
And the weird thing too was I remember you mentioned it and then I experienced it, but that's when you have to battle your doppelganger and it goes like completely 2D. Like you push up and you hop. Like, man, that was so wild. And I was like, okay, this is what he was talking about. And I didn't last long. I tried, but that's when I ended up getting killed. But by then I unlocked like Leon Belmont and stuff like that. And yeah, once you start unlocking the Belmonts in the DLC, like the game becomes like a lot easier. Like they're so overpowered. Like Xander Scramble right there. I can't get over it.
Xander scramble the world. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. One whip at
It's
a
freaking
time.
wild. It's freaking wild, dude. Dude, so my next one, you might think it's a Metroidvania, but it's not. Eldest Souls is the next one that's on my list. This game is a wild one because it goes into my category of games that I played back in the day. That now this is like a spiritual successor in my opinion too. I don't know if you played Titan Souls back in the day.
No, what was that?
Titan Souls. Titan
No,
Souls. I might be Xander scrambling it, but in my opinion, Titan Souls was a boss rush style overhead game. It was almost like Legend of Zelda, but just boss to boss to boss to boss. And but it was like very amazingly constructed old PlayStation Vita game that was
Oh, okay.
badass title. I'm talking about old school game, like from
Yeah.
a while ago, and like 10 years. But Eldest Souls takes that, but gives it a retro aesthetic. You get all the pixel graphics, and then you jump into the Castlevania style, blasphemous, freaking, the Last Faith, because like that style of aesthetic. But then you're jumping in from boss fight to boss fight to boss fight. So when I say this, I mean there's no minions in between. So like you're just going through the level, and then you get to the next. Like there's like little puzzles in the world and lore to uncover within the game. And then you get to the next piece, and these boss battles are bullet hell crazy, psychotic battles that just test your metal the whole time. And I had played this game around the same time as Last Faith. Like these two were like almost within a few weeks of each other. And this game was like, because it's overhead, it's isometric. It is not a 2D game. It is a retro based overhead game, and the boss fights in it were just amazing to play. And it's just like dodging through all the different bullets and in the telegraphing the attacks and making sure that you can avoid the enemies, and then getting past each one by the hair of your ass and go in and get into the next piece. I mean, it's just so satisfying to play. And if you hadn't played the Titan Souls back in the day, like this one is just the same type of feeling as, Eldest Souls. It has the same feeling of like satisfaction as you play through them. It's just one of those, just little chef's kiss games.
Indeed. Yeah, I looked at it and I totally had that, Castlevania kind of vibe to it. That top down. I was like, man, this looks really cool. But for me, like going in a complete different direction is one of my absolute favorite indies that came out this year, and that was Little Kitty Big City. This
Totally any big city.
This is totally different than any sort of like Castlevania. Like, we're talking about all these gothic, whetstone, creek gothic stuff, but this game's like more lighthearted. You play as a cat who fell out of his window at his apartment, and you're just trying to get back into your apartment, but it turns into a sandbox style adventure. I wouldn't say a lot of folks are like, so it's like Untitled Goose Game, but with a cat. And I'm like, no, because Untitled Goose Game is like a trolling game. Like, this is a game like Untitled Goose Game was like you're a goose and you're just ruining everyone's lives. Where this one is like you meet animals like that are NPCs. You meet crows.
It's objective based in that open sandbox, right? It's not like Scroll with a gun where you just crush everyone, right? With a gun.
Exactly.
Scroll with a gun, you just run around like Goat Simulator, where you just run around and cause chaos. And it's not like that, right? It's objective based, like Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah, I mean, like you can definitely just run around and do whatever you want, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it has an actual story to it. You collect shinies. That's like your currency for crows, and crows give you different things that kind of help you. You get like different hats, of course. And one of my favorite things was the Tanuki. You would help the Tanuki, and he would put you into sewers, and that was like your warp zone, so you can like go from different parts of the city. There was like this duck that I had to help out the little ducklings. They're like, oh yeah, help me find my kids. And like one of them was like inside the laundromat, like playing Virtual Fighter. So like I had to like find a way to turn off the arcade machine. Like I had to get up on the roof and like pull like some sort of electrical wire that turned it off so he would stop playing Virtual Fighter, and he was trying to go Super Saiyan. It's a weird game, but it's so much fun. And big props to like social media, because that's how I found out about the game. Was it was on like an Instagram ad. I was like scrolling through Instagram, and it was like Little Kitty Big City, and I'm like, what? Really, really cool game. It's like what I wanted Stray to be,
It's definitely one I hadn't heard of. So yeah,
it's cool. It's a lot of fun.
definitely not. So let me cover a game that's not gritty like Metroidvania, but it is an epic game. And even from the screenshots, like you can kind of see it, but you don't understand the magnitude. And this is Prodigal. Worst name of the year for a game, because a game that's just called Prodigal. So I had no clue what you, the Prodigal Son, like what are you? But however, this game is an epic Legend of Zelda style overhead game that's pixelated, has a Game Boy Color style feeling to it. Really gives me remembrances of the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, which are completely underrated Zelda games, by the way. If you have played those two games, those are some of the best in the series. Just because like nobody's ever touched them, and they do things that are unique with the Zelda mechanics. Well, the Prodigal game is an interesting piece because it is a complete action RPG, full Zelda game. The storyline, the arcs, the way that you unlock all of the new items and the new abilities is flawless. It just comes about throughout the story as you go through the dungeons. The Zelda dungeons in there, the Prodigal dungeons in there are really, really fun to play, very expertly designed. It's done by a developer named Color Grave, and they have done platformers and other things. Their style is the Game Boy Color style. They have a platformer game that Premium Edition is doing that's just outstanding as well. But this game was the first one I had played on my own. And I played this one back when I still lived in Hawaii this year. So this is before I moved. That's why I'm a little rusty on all of the details. But my thing was like going through this game, was an experience. And it's like, going through a Game Boy game and then you get to the end boss and it starts another gear and reminds you you're in 2024, and then anime style boss battle kicks in with vocals and you're like, oh, like happened and I was completely unexpected. And the thing is, the developers created a sequel called Veritas, which is on the screenshotted on the title of my very first indie gaming gems. It is the spiritual successor. It might actually be in the same one because I have not been able to dig into Veritas yet. It is on my backlog. I need to play that damn game because Prodigal it's in my top 5 of the year. And it was such a good experience. And it was unexpected. I played it and I was like, holy cow. And this game is not ported. It is only on Steam right now. Yeah. So for the listeners, like, support this game, support games like this, because this game, the developer has told us that if it does well, he will port it. He's gauging his Steam sales, and a lot of indie developers do that because it costs money to port to PlayStation and to port to Switch.
Yeah.
So support them, because I would love to not only play these on Switch, but also it be on the docket to something to do physically, because you can't do it physically if it doesn't get a port.
It to me, it made me think of the graphic style made me think of like the old school Pokemon games. And I was looking at it, I was like, that's really, really cool. Like I hadn't heard about it, but something I want to check out now because like it does fit that kind of aesthetic. I like that.
The story evolves throughout as you play it. Like it's just it's an epic adventure. And like I sat down on a weekend, started playing it, and I didn't put it down until I beat it. Like it was one of those. Like I just nothing. And I mean, I got family dolls and everything. I was like, nothing else. Just sitting there on the couch, playing it on my Steam Deck, because I played on the Steam Deck. And dude, it was so good. And like, I want to play it again, but also there's Veritas in there. So I have it. And the thing is, with our lists that we're talking about today, is it doesn't have to be a game from 2024. It could be any game that we played in 2024 that moved us.
Yeah, which brings me to my game that it didn't come out in 2024, but it was a game that I heard about, and I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and check it out. And this isn't a game I usually kind of play, even though I kind of alluded earlier that I'm getting into like the cozy side of gaming, because this is a cozy game. It's Arcade Paradise. And have you played Arcade Paradise?
Yes, I have. Like, you start off in a laundromat.
Yeah. With like a father with like no hope for your future. Your father's just kind of like, I left you just dumped because you're like, you can't do anything else in life. And your older sister's kind of like, I got faith in you. And you find this, broken arcade machine inside the laundromat. And that turns your laundromat into slowly but surely into a grand scale arcade. Like it starts off as like a little, shady place that you would wash your clothes. Yeah. Well, it start off. Yeah, and you would, you have to do things in this game like, clean up the laundromat, do people's clothes. Like there is this, kind of routine. Yeah, that part, that especially if it's something you already do, like you already like do retail, you already clean up after people. It's just kind of like mundane. But once you get past that, you actually unlock and start to get all these different arcade machines. And the arcade games, I mean, while not like fully fledged like UFO 50, they are games that you can play, and they're kind of, in the style of some retro games like Street Fighter and stuff like that.
That's what I liked about it is that it's not just simulation. You can play the games, even though you're missing tasks when you play those games.
Yeah.
Like I was sitting there playing an arcade game one time, and then it's like, all the laundry is now bad. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about their laundry. I want to play this arcade game. Like, what the hell? Yeah, I only played a little bit. I never got out of the dredges of the laundromat, though.
Oh man, like it gets to the point where you start having like the place has black lights, and you have like a DDR machine and RGB lights everywhere, and it's crazy. It's cool. It's definitely one of those games, like I said, if you want one of those games to unwind and just kind of turn your brain off doing something, Arcade Paradise is definitely that game to check out because it does have a good objective at the end because you get to run your own arcade. Everyone that's into video games at one point when had their own arcade, you know?
Yeah. Or in your house, have your arcade. A lot of us have done that over the years because I've had arcade games in my house at one point,
Oh yeah.
which is fun. Arcade games and kiosks and fun stuff.
Uh,
Fortunately or unfortunately, I move all the time. But I still have a couple. I still have a couple arcades. I still own a few. I own a Nintendo Red Tent arcade, which is the double-sided. Looks like a old tent that was in Pizza Hut back in the day, and there's Nintendo games on each side. I have one of those. Heavy as shit, ugly as shit. My wife hates it. And then the other thing I own is a Donkey Kong Jr. cocktail.
Oh, nice.
And
I've always
once I stop moving, I'm gonna put a double DK because there's a board you can take from the Donkey Kong Jr. one and put Donkey Kong and Jr. on it. You just put a little mod chip in there somehow. I don't know how. If those people who know how to do that still exist when I stop moving, I'm going to put a double DK because I want to play some Donkey
nice.
Kong.
Yeah, when it comes to kiosks, the one I've always wanted to own was the Game Boy one. The one that used to be like in my old Toys R Us, like that was on that one to me is like the coolest kiosk.
Yeah. I owned a Super Nintendo kiosk at one point, and this was like before my daughter was born. She's almost 13. She'll be 13 after the new year. And this thing was freaking huge, made of metal, so freaking cool. It just was very like I had nowhere to put it. Yeah, so had to sell it to a local after I moved at one point. But I still do have a Switch kiosk. I have a big old Switch kiosk, so that thing is cool. And so we can create our own arcade paradise in our houses now.
And you don't have to do the laundry.
I mean, I still gotta do laundry.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
Yeah. Sadly. So the final game on the list for me, and this is on the top 5 list because there is some honorable mentions. My top game, not really, we'll say top game, but also my final game is one that completely moved me, has a crazy freaking story to it, based off of an indie movie from many years ago. If nobody's ever seen it, it's set in an apocalyptic world with neon retro style aesthetics and synth music, and has Michael Ironsides in it as the villain. And the movie and the game are both called Turbo Kid. This game was wild because I backed it on Kickstarter, got the code, played the code. And again, another game just like Prodigal. I could not put down Turbo Kid. Played the hell out of it, but it was a long game. So I was playing it for like days straight. It is a Metroidvania, but this Metroidvania, you have a BMX bike with you because Turbo Kid rides a BMX bike.
Yeah, I was like, dude, this is like Trials meets Metroidvania. Like it's pretty wild.
It is, but it's interesting how they pull it off. So, first of all, Turbo Kid is a spiritual successor, a sequel to the movie. So it tells some of the cutscenes of the movie in between biomes. It'll do like a flashback. But the game itself is after the movie. So you fight all the characters. There's really none of the enemies from the movie in the game outside of the tutorial is like the blade saw guy, which is one of the main baddies in the movie. But the game is interesting because the Metroidvania-ish portions, like you walk around, you run, jump, everything. But you press a button and you magically out of your bunghole pull out it just appears. Your bike appears with like some kind of like technology. So then you hit the bike and you can start doing like ramps and it helps you. So instead of doing the double tap and running, you literally just hit the button and you pull out the bike and start going. So it's almost your dash is a bike, which is flawless. It's a flawless way of doing it. So it's not a biking Metroidvania. It's a Metroidvania with a bike, which is really cool. And then there's just spots that are like little trick spots. So there'll be like little ramps and stuff. And you can do these half pipes and get momentum and fly up. And then you can use your other abilities as you unlock them to traverse higher and higher on platforms. Some of these levels are like super high into the freaking mountains. And then the boss battles in the game are like really amazing. And what I do like about this game is it is not a Souls like soul crushingly difficult game. This game is very approachable. The bosses, they're longer. The boss fights are longer, but they have tells. So you can plan and fight the bosses and eventually defeat them. Your mistakes will over time get you killed, but it always feels like if you ever lose, you always feel like, oh, I almost did it, and you go right back after, and you only get sent back to the checkpoint. Um, but like there's spots too, like where you have two different ways to go to a spot, like to a path to get an unlockable or something. And I would like inherently, I'm going to take the more difficult routes. They say don't go that way, so I went that way, and I could get through the sections, like because it's like there's platforming challenges. But if you grew up on Mario and stuff like that, like and Super Metroid and Castlevania games, like you won't have a problem with the different stuff because it's fair. It's made for gamers. And just going through the game, such a treat. I don't know if you had time to play it at all yet, Xander.
No, I haven't. I need.
Oh my god, dude! It's one of my top Metroidvanias of all time. It is so good. And the thing why this has a wild story, though, again, this was another one that I played before I moved out here to Texas. I was still in Hawaii. Mm, But after beating the game, I noticed it did not have a physical. So I reached out to the developers on Kickstarter and go, hey, do you have a physical? No, we do not. Put them in contact with Premium because I do the art for them. And that was part of our fall direct this year was the reveal with the Metroidvania group of Turbo Kid that we're doing physically. And I'm writing the guide on the game with the developers.
Yes,
It's gonna be finished.
your dream.
It's gonna be
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like one of my favorite games of the year. I had played it and beaten it. Now there is a new DLC that was released, and this was since I had beaten the game, so I haven't went back and played it yet. I'm tracking that it like adds a little bit, but it's not like this. It's not a whole new level or anything. It just adds a little bit of extra to the game to make it more fun, a little bit more depth. So it's a little fun, little free DLC for everyone. But yeah, 100%. That it might be my top, definitely my top indie game of the year. Might be one of my top games of the year. We'll see if it beats out, the Legend of Zeldas and stuff like that. The Elden Rings that I played this year. It's like, because I had played the Elden Ring and the DLC this year, so there's some epic AAA titles that I had some fun experiences with. But Turbo Kid, so well done. I wanted to crush all fails for physicals and everything, but with what is it, 14,000 games a year, it is tough for even the greats to stand out now.
Indeed.
And now speaking of physicals, yours has an old school physical release because I got this game physically. I have a big ass collector's edition of your last game.
Oh, Crisis Wing.
This
I love good old shmups, and this is a love letter to that genre. East Asia Soft, I absolutely love them. Like whenever East Asia Soft is making a shmup, I'm gonna automatically think, because one, they're fun, and two, they're super affordable. They're not really like expensive games. Like they're around like at the most maybe $10. But this one here is a love letter.
Even their physicals, like they were doing the classic with PlayAsia, doing play exclusives that were like $40 for the collector's editions, which is wild. I don't know if they can afford to do that shit, but yeah.
Yeah, and this is a love letter to Truxton, which I
Awesome.
freaking love it. But it's a lot of fun. And I was like, I want to put a shooter on my list because I love the shmups. They're my go-to when I want to zone out. They're my go-to when I'm like streaming, when I'm live streaming, because it's something that I can play and talk at the same time. Because
Absolutely.
it's weird. It's weird because like people, they see the bullet hells and they see like games like this and right, oh man, you gotta like concentrate. And it's like I just kind of, it's almost like I'm on autopilot. I'm just we like going in and out, and yeah, I was like, yeah, this is what you do. The creep rises to the top.
That's awesome. No, it's
No.
freaking wild.
I didn't know they had a physical. I'm gonna have to get that. We'll have to get the physical for it.
Oh, for sure.
Like I said, folks that are listening, if you're on like the eShop, Steam, wherever, and you see East Asia Soft and it's a shmup, get it. Like just no questions, just buy it.
I have so many from over the years because the Switch has been going since what 2017, and like there was like at first play exclusives from PlayAsia were all like shoot 'em ups, and then they branched off into a lot of the visual novels, which I'm not extremely interested in, so I stopped supporting those. But I had to I was getting all of them up to a point. I think the last one that broke the camel's back during the first year was the Penty Party game. That's awesome. Yeah, 3D, you're controlling a pair of panties, and it's
Yeah.
that was a weird one. But there was a lot of shooters in there, and um, that is something that I'm looking into doing is some kind of unique, fun version of a Switch book, because the Switch collector series that I was doing, where I was covering every single game every year for the Switch, was taking way too much time. I've been working on year 3 for years. Just got sidetracked by Genesis books and stuff, but it's more so like it exponentially grew from year 2, and 4 is even crazier. 5, 6, 7. There's so many games out there. So I, but I did do a play exclusive in East Asia Soft, autobiography, not autobiography, but like talked about them, as a company in one of the books, which was fun to do with the shoot 'em ups and everything. So, I mean, but Crisis Wing itself is excellent, and Truxton is such a good game. Did you know that there's a Truxton 2 in the arcade?
Oh, really?
There's a sequel that was in the arcades. That's a fun one to find on MAME.
Oh yeah. I'll have to look. I might have it not even I might have it not realize it because I know in Japan it's like
Playlist. Yeah,
yeah, because I know like in like in Japan it was called like what was it, Tetsujinin? Yeah. Yeah. So I know it was different in Japan. So I might have the sequel and it might be called that, that too.
Yeah. Well, if you have a full ROM set, it's on there for sure. But Truxton is such a freaking classic game, and that goes back to the classic game room Truxton. Yeah, look at the awesomeness. I've actually shot the shit with that guy a few times at conventions. It's cool as hell.
Well, that's the game room.
Oh yeah, love this stuff. Um, so I think with the honorable mentions, I think we should just pick a few and go over it, because I know we're gonna hit time, because some people gotta work and other people gotta drink. I mean, half it. I'm just trying to avoid going down rabbit holes of information gathering. That's my thing. My OCD is real, but let's see. So I will pick the first one, and this one honorable mention, but it was very close to making my list. Let's talk about Balatro, because Balatro was the game I would say that broke the glass ceiling out of any of the indie games this year, because Vampire Survivors was one previous years that broke the glass ceiling, where it hit the mainstream. Balattra's a weird one, though, because it's still a card game. A lot of people, quote unquote, looked past it. And then I think even you were saying, oh, I never heard of it or whatever. I'm like, oh, but only like 4 million people downloaded it. Nobody, not necessarily. Oh, like it's insane. And when I played it, because I would look past it too, and then I was playing it here after I had moved, and I was like, oh, let me try. Let me see what all the hype's about. It had touch support too, so I could play it on Legion Go on my thing on the tablet. And I got completely obsessed because of the craziness of the Jokers. Because the Jokers modify your poker hand to the point where the scores just satisfyingly count up. And it goes crazy. And it's just such a satisfying experience. But the thing is, it never ends. So even after you beat the final boss blind, you can continue to play forever. And then the scores then exponentially go up to the point where it changes the game. So there's a meta game in there to get to the point where you beat because you blind, boss blind, and the boss blind limits you. Once you do so many boss blinds, it then beats the game, but you can continue infinitely. But the thing is that the meta of the game changes to the point where you need to now manipulate the systems in order to get millions and millions of points versus thousands of points. Because I mean, if you do like a Joker hand, you get like 10 points, like 10, 20 points. That's what you get. The boss blind's millions. I get millions of points. So it's exponentially doing the combination because there's two different categories of combinations where you can do X times multipliers. They're called mults. And then you got the other side. And when you combine both of those together, it just goes exponentially. It's such a freaking wild game. It's like it's gambling to the extreme.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the early titles we talked about when we started the podcast. I remember you were talking about that. Another game I want to talk about that, because I wanted to stick to like games that we both played is Berserk Boy. Berserk Boy, like I said earlier, this is what we wanted Mighty Number 9 to be. That's the best way I can describe it. It's yes, it is a Mega Man like game. It has inspiration of the Blue Bomber, but it's just not a Mega Man clone either. And I like the fact that it's stage based. I like that. I like, you get the hub world that you go back to that you can, upgrade your things and stuff and all the doohickeys. You can do that. But, you go back after you're done and boom, you're going to another stage and you're getting more power. So it's great. It's awesome. That's how we
I like the
great
I
game.
like the little hub world going back and forth to levels.
Mhm.
It's just, and then the gameplay mechanics are that Mega Man X style. So it's very satisfying to play, which Mighty Number 9 did not have. Like this game is a love letter to the action platforms of old.
And you can grind on your shoes like Sonic. Like you're wearing a pair of soaps for those folks that remember those shoes. I remember soaps. Psst.
Wearing your best. Wearing your Zubas.
You mentioned one in here too that I remember playing that didn't come out this year, but Gato Roboto.
Yes, I was actually wanting to chat about Gato Roboto because that's in the category of a game that I did beat this year that just didn't make my list. But being able to play as a cat in a mech suit, like you can't go wrong with that. And the graphical aesthetics though, it's old school Game Boy, but it's more black and white. But old school Game Boy, but the graphics and the way that they programmed it just really pops. Very satisfying. The way you get new power-ups progresses very well. It's not really that hard to explore the world, though. The map system is expertly done. The way that it shows where you need to go, along with where the unlockables are, works real well. There was one spot too where you like jump into the water and it's like a little submarine thing, which is really cute,
Yeah.
and fun. They didn't do that enough, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
and then like there's like crazy boss battles in there, and like it's just a really really fun game. It's a very shorter. It's a short.
I was about to say it's not long.
Has a really cool physical too.
Yeah, and I remember you writing this down reminded me too because I did mention this game this year with a collaboration from Isha Gaming from Norway. I did a video with her like and a bunch of different other YouTubers. We talked about you know hidden gems on the Switch, like games that people don't talk enough about, and that was the game that I chose was Gato Roboto because
Nice.
that was one of those games that I remember when I played it. It was one of those like summertime kind of games where, it was summertime and I was inside, staying away from the heat and playing it, and I was just slowly, chipping away at it. And it was a great game. I mean, any game that you play as a cat's going to be fun in my book. Obviously, I like games with cats.
Games with cats are fun. And the thing is that, this is, pixelated fun, reminds me of the old Game Boy games of old. Like, and it really does have Metroid 2 vibes to me. Yeah, Return of Samus on the original Game Boy, not the 3DS. But but like it really did have those vibes, which was badass. So now the other one right below it on our list, have you played any of the Turnip Boy games? Holy cow.
I haven't, but I watched the trailer. I mean, first of all, the title struck my eye. I'm like, oh, Turnip Boys, what? And I
Turnip
looked,
Boy robs a bank.
yeah, and I looked at
Well, and the thing is, the first one was Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. And that game is completely Zelda style, but you're like ripping up taxes as you go through the game. This game, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, is more it's more roguelike, where you go through and you jump into the levels and you have like a timeline ticker before the cops come and get you because you're robbing the bank. And so it's wild as you're going through. But the first one, Zelda style, you got a sword and you're attacking everything like Legend of Zelda. This one, you're shooting shit out of everything at the gun.
He's got like an automatic like submachine gun. He's just it makes you think of like the old school like Newground days, you know, or like some of the games that some of the early like indie games like what was that Alien Human
Hominid.
Yeah, really big indie games, and it kind of had that kind of aesthetic to it.
It does, yeah. And you get like little costumes to unlock through the game, different weapons, tons of little weapons in the game. And what's really cool though is that like as you go through, like there's little spots where there's like sub quests, and it's pretty obvious what you need to do, but then be able to execute it within the timeline as it's ticking down is an interesting piece with it. It just makes it fun for a one more run type of game.
Indeed. And one of the games I wanted to talk about that I wanted you to mention that I thought was really cool. It has Bela Lugosi in it.
Bela Lugosi?
Indeed.
That?
It's like Dracula's Revenge.
That's not the game.
That's not it. I'm getting two games mixed up is what it is.
You're Xander scrambling the game.
Yeah.
So the game you're alluding to with Bela Lugosi is called Carpathian Night.
That one. Yes.
Carpathian Night.
Which I saw a someone had shared it on our indie gaming gyms Facebook page. They shared
Yes. And that game is cool because I had backed that sucker years ago on Kickstarter, like a long time ago. Bela Lugosi was not like associated with it, and the wild thing is that I was at Too Many Games, and I was over there. It was at the heyday of Premium Edition. I was still the CEO, and we had a line around the convention of people trying to get all of our games because we finally had games in stock. This was like, when we had our Series 3 coming out with, so we had Robot Named Fire on the table, but also Phenotopia and stuff. And it was crazy how many people were there. And I was like, at one point, we needed to take a break. So I walked across, and they had things split off to where they had like an arcade game. And they always have an indie game section at a lot of the conventions, and Too Many Games definitely did. I walked by, and I see this guy in a cloak playing a game. I look over, I'm like, is that Carpathian Night that I back? So I go talk to the guy, and he's in full character, like chatting with him. And I talked to him and we were talking, and I'm like, oh, and by the way, I'm a backer. And he's like, wait, what? You actually supported the game? Because I had talked about that I run a publishing company at the same point. And I'm like, hey, once you get to a point, talk to me. So hopefully Carpathian Night talks to me, that talks to Premium. I no longer own the company, but talks to Premium because but playing the game at that point, it was still very beta, but it has Castlevania Bloodline vibes. There are two different characters in the game. So you got your Belmont style whip guy, and then you have your spear guy that is like Eric Leonard from, Castlevania Bloodlines. So, and the thing is very, very early on, there was no different types of, magic style like you would have in a Castlevania one. That he added unlockable abilities, because I just got my code within the last couple weeks for the Kickstarter backer for the Nintendo Switch. So I got a Switch code of Carpathian Night, and Bela Lugosi is in the game now, so they have the whole lore of it in there. The cool thing is that the developer is still open to feedback. So I was like, hey, when I'm playing it, my analog, sometimes I'm lazy with when I'm playing analog, and I'll hit a button and the attack gets stuck. It's I'll look into it. Like I love it when developers do that. I'm like, I'm not sure if it's just me. I just need to get good. Because if somebody makes a game, I don't typically critique at that point, but I was like, hey, so I was like getting stuck when I was playing. So I had to play with the D-pad, which fine, but like I like to play with the analog too. Um, but the thing is that what I like is you go through and there's a new mode in this that wasn't in the one that I played at Too Many Games many years ago. It's like a maniac mode or something, and it counts your deaths. And then there's unlockables. They're like these gem unlockables, and then there's like these lore unlockables. And so I'm not sure because I've only played the first couple levels on the Switch version, but I'm not sure if the death count gets you a different ending or something. I assume it does. That'd be freaking dope. So, but either way, though, Carpathian Night is freaking dope, man. That game is cool so far. And then the little boss battles in it are hard. They're wild. Oh, every level has a boss too. Like 1-1 had a boss, and then 1-2 has a boss. Like, dude, it's freaking cool.
Well, you mentioned it's on Switch. I'm gonna have to check it out for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool. Um, so one that was interesting, might be a little too mainstream for this one. But I don't know if you got to experience the demo or whatever of Hades 2.
I
Because
didn't. I didn't, but I love Hades. I love
the original Hades was insane. Hades 2 is more of what we wanted from out of Hades. So it's more playing through the game one more time. Like it's so good. And I just love the meta progression in the game as you progress the storyline and you're supposed to die. Because it's the underworld. Like this is your eternity.
Hades was the first because I played a couple of roguelikes before I played Hades, but Hades was the roguelike that made me go, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is how it goes. Like that was the first one that really clicked with me. So
Well, and us being old school gamers, like I would say 2017, beginning of Switch, I didn't like roguelikes because I didn't understand them. And so like games like Binding of Isaac, which are excellent, I didn't get it. And because I don't like to lose. I like to play the games. Like I like to enter to the point where I'm a badass through the game and I can just like one shot. And that is not a roguelike. That is not the mentality of a roguelike. And now it like for me, the whole genre, it takes seasoning. It takes you just getting that out of your head and realizing it's okay to die. You're supposed to, and you unlock more things. That's why I like games like Vampire Survivors that throw in a timer that you're gonna die. You can't get past it. Once the red death comes out, you're dead, and that's okay. And that's why I like some of the meta progression now. Whereas like Hades, like you go through it, even if you beat the end boss, which I think in the first one's Hades, this one's Kronos, which is Hades' father. Like it's the god of time or something. But you fight Kronos, and they just backwards the time again because he's Kronos. It's like fuck you, and you just go through and you get to play again and enjoy it. It's really fun, and those games go on forever. And I'm so glad though that I got that crap out of my system. So some of you old school gamers like us that don't enjoy roguelikes, you might just need to fight the right one to
like I
click.
yeah, because what it did with Hades is like I had noticed every time I would lose, you would get a new cutscene. The game would actually progress, and I was like, wait, okay, like it wasn't a game over. Like I was supposed to die there, and I'm like, oh, it was like a total aha moment. Which I remember when I first got my Switch, that was one of the first games I got was Binding of Isaac. I got it, and I was like, oh, it's like a twin stick shooter. This is gonna be great. And I was like, I don't, because my best friend loves Binding of Isaac, and he's like, this is the game you got to get for your Switch. And I was like, I don't really like this. Like, I don't really like the way this is going. But I wish I still had it because I would play it now, and that physical has gotten a little expensive now.
And if you think about it, just as bad as the Indie Credible and Indie Gaming Gems are for our backlogs, now us getting past that glass ceiling of acceptance of death in the games created a terrible thing for our backlogs. So now I go back and get a new appreciation. There was a game I played in the first year of the Switch or so. It was called Tumbleseed. And it was an indie game. I don't know if you heard of Tumbleseed. Um, have you ever played ice cold beer in the arcades back in the day? The old mechanical game where you take a ball and you have to put them in the little lit up holes. It's old.
Oh no, I
Okay.
haven't played that. No.
And so my buddy Rob is the ice cold beer world champion. He plays it every year at MagFest. And he wins the world championships. The game is so cool though. You literally take a marble and you adjust it and you get it into it. Well, Tumbleseed is a Metroidvania roguelike version of Ice Cold Beer with biomes and aesthetics. And when I played it the first time, I'm like, I don't like it because I keep dying. I keep losing over and over and over again because I'm not good enough. But I wasn't in the mindset of acceptance of one more time.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I go back now, because I absolutely did not like the experience with it. And that was when I was doing the Switch Mania playcast back in the day. And so now I'm like, man, if I go back in there, and there's so many games like that. But I am very thankful that I was already in my acceptance when I had played a robot named Fight, the Infinite Metroidvania game that was one of our first signings for Premium, because that game is a masterpiece. And the fact that I was okay with dying made that game so much better. Oh my gosh. Like there's so many games out there now. Binding of Isaac is a damn masterpiece. And I haven't really put enough time into it since I've hit through that threshold of acceptance in roguelikes. But that genre is very, very fun now. And the other thing is that there's roguelikes and roguelites. I do like it when they add meta progression under the hood. I love meta progression. It's like with Vampire Survivors, and they give you more and more abilities as you unlock them. Like I like that because then it gives you a little more power as you play next run throughs. And that is
like a phoenix rising from the ashes, you know.
Yeah, because the roguelike is that your skills progress to the point where you can play more. I like when it's the combination of your skills and abilities that make it just really, really satisfying. Some of my favorites.
That's my thing right there. So, what was some of the last ones you wanted to mention before we wrap this up? 'Cause I feel like there's.
Well, I definitely put the list away because I'm like, otherwise we'll talk on this shit for hours, man.
Yeah, right.
But I would say the last honorable mention, and it's a game that I need to play more of, which is why it wasn't up on my list. It's a very cozy Metroidvania. It is called Animal Well. And
that's a PlayStation Plus right now.
It's on PlayStation Plus. It is such a good Metroidvania is the name, and that like there's some people on in the community that hate that term. I love it, and the Metroidvania guru is the one who plugged that into my head when I did the interview with him back this year. But the Animal Well is such a cozy, fun game. It has the Game Boy style graphical aesthetics, but it's puzzles. It's a puzzle-based Metroidvania. It's not attack focused. It is chill, cozy. Drink your cup of coffee with your Christmas sweatshirt that you got on, and enjoying the fa la 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 with what is it, Godzilla? Godzilla's out. But like the playing through, it's just such a really fun treat. It reminded me, there's an NES game that did this a long time ago, an NES homebrew game that did this. And I can't even remember the name of the game, but it had this Metroidvania style to it. And it did it before Animal Well. Animal takes that game and like dials it up into modern aesthetics, just makes it a really fun experience. And it's just a really, really cool game that I need to play more of, because I didn't feel like me putting a couple hours into Animal Well was, I could put it on my top 5, because like I probably had missed some stuff so far that, because
I know the developer. Yeah, I was about to say the developer said there's going to be secrets that years from now people are going to be finding in that game. Like he's put a lot of little things into it,
dude. And that's the thing though, is that like as we play the indie indie games, we do the channels, Indie Gaming Gems and Indie Credible. We're not necessarily playing the games to fruition for all of them because we're playing so many games. Like this is the opposite. This makes our backlogs worse, people. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
Like our backlogs are going to be terrible from this show, but couldn't ask for a cooler way to do it because it's so fun. We get to have experiences, and then we have the games like in this episode that, while I couldn't put an Animal Well in there because that game is so cool. Again, y'all need to play Animal Well, but there are games like in here, like oh goodness, like Eldest Souls that I just had, an experience with and played it and beat it, or another game where Prodigal Zelda style game that I just could not put down this year, and so those experiences do pop out. So the cream, as the Macho Man says, rises to the top. The cream rises to the top. And it creates some memorable, fun experiences. And 2024 was a good one.
Indeed. And it's only up from here because there's no telling what 2025 is going to bring. Like, holy crap. Yeah. Our backlogs are going to last forever. But yeah, I think this is going to wrap up the episode. We're going to go into our plug. Oh yeah, we're going to go into the plugs and wish you guys a very happy holiday. For sure.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind before we go to the plugs is I do have the complete Genesis book series going on. By the time this airs, it should still be around the end of it, but there are late backer pledges, so you can still back it. If you hear this and go, oh crap, the Genesis book thing, you should be able to at least get the book. Right now, there's so many cool personal stories that I've been putting in the back because I used to create separate book for it. I used to have a Super Nintendo book and then the Super Nintendo Compendium. Now it all goes into the Genesis book. So the Genesis book is complete. And there are indie games in there because the Genesis homebrew scene is insane. There are so many cool freaking games. There's literally like 2 or 3 Genesis homebrews on Kickstarter right now, and they might still be live when you watch this, that are just like, there's this ZPF game that is the shoot 'em up game that is just outstanding that is on the Genesis right now. There's a game called The Cursed Legacy that is so freaking cool. And so like my knowledge on indie games is like insane because I follow so many different communities, and these are in this book. So I've been doing indie before indie was cool, brother.
I'm here for the ride, man, because it's like every time we put another episode, I'm like, oh man, I gotta check this out too. It's more games to play.
Well, and I think we'll have to do an episode in the future about our little New Year's resolutions. But I would say one challenge I have to you is like every episode brings something that blows my mind on an episode of the Incredible Podcast. Like, oh crap, I didn't know about Little Kitty in the Big City or whatever it's called. Look, did I scramble it? Little Kitty.
Yeah, you got it right. I did. You went over easy on that one.
Oh, my brain is on drugs, Johnny Depp. Any questions? Brain is on coffee is what it is. Yeah. But yeah, everybody, thank you for joining us for the podcast. 2024 was amazing. Things are only gonna grow and get crazier. But we'll still be us.
Indeed. See you guys next time.
Thank you everyone for checking out this episode of Indie Credible. There we go. Make sure you follow us. We have lots of stuff going on every week on YouTube on Fridays, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you check out Indie Gaming Gems. That is the structured review / preview series about 10 indie games you may not have heard of.
And you can check me out, Xander Scullion, across the board. I kept it real simple for you guys. You can check me out on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. And, on my channel, I cover a little series called Play and Tell, where I talk about games I've been playing, leave little short impressions, mini reviews, and most importantly, when you walk away, you have something new to play. So you can check out my Play and Tell series. I also have some reviews that I put out every once in a while, and a live stream, which I'm really trying to commit and have a dedicated schedule. So that's more important that you hit the bell so you're notified whenever I'm live, because you never know. I might be live right now.
Yes, he's always live. Oh, always. And then, of course, I have all of my books at HagensAlley.com. You could check out. I've had like dozens of books published. I try to upload and keep things up to date with the latest reviews, the latest books up there, but they have to be in hand. So if you follow me on social medias, you'll see when the newest Kickstarter goes live, the backer kit goes live, the newest crowdfunding thing is going live. And as soon as you become a backer, there's updates that go out all the time. So we're always working on new books and new series and new things. Of course, upcoming, coordinated with this podcast, will be Indie Gaming Gems, which will be coming out next year sometime. It'll be fun time here for us in the indie gaming world.